Hi guys, this is Yaron Batan, again the co-host and co-producer of Heroes Manufactured. Sorry, I meant host actually. I am here today with a new guest that we have lined up. I mentioned to you guys a little bit about him last week. So his name is Shane Kirshenblatt. He's a local artist here in Toronto, but he also does some work outside. And he's been doing this stuff for quite some time. I'll let you guys get into that with him shortly once we start getting to the line of questioning here. But yeah, I mean, today we are going to go over a few other things afterwards of the show as well, our Comics Vault section, as well as our toys and collectibles. Yeah, and we're just going to get right to it and start our show today with Shane. Hey, Shane, how's it going?
I am good, and yourself?
Great. Yeah, man. I mean, I see you're in your studio there. That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, I was telling the audience a little bit about you, a little bit about how long you've been in the business for. I know it's been quite some time. Am I right? I mean, at least you mentioned me about close to 20 years.
Yes, yeah, 20 years or so. I mean, working as a professional artist and doing various things, specifically in comics, I'd say about 15.
Okay.
But a lot of different things since high school, really working on stuff. But
and prior to comics, I mean, what were you doing?
Well, it's funny. Like when I was about 16 years old, my mother, wanting to promote me as mothers do, us like local businesses if they wanted like new menus and new signs. So I remember like my first professional art gig was at the Midway restaurant in Thornhill, doing a menu poster for them. And then I did stuff for like Sue's Fruit Market as well. I did some signage for them, and that was so I got some early signage. And then when I worked at Red Lobster, I did some like bar signage promotion for them before they got taken over by a corporate entity and had to do more official looking stuff. So yeah, I got to work with some big companies fairly early on, and that was fun, interesting.
Oh, it's awesome. And I mean, you've I mean, first of all, it's great to have you here on the show today. I mean, since the premiere of our original film, Heroes Manufactured, you were a big part of that. I mean, you're on the poster. You also helped us produce one of the posters, which is actually just behind me right there. And actually, I'll show everyone just to take a look at the actual image. That's the poster that Shane put together back in 2016. You have there the full cast. Ty Templeton, Shane there is on the right side, if you can see that. You've got Megan Carter, who I believe goes by a new last name now. She's been married since. Alfonso Spinos and Andy Sammy. So I mean, it's been quite some time since you've worked with us on that. I mean, what have you been up to since that?
Fair bit, actually. I mean, 2016 was a year for a lot of personal challenges for me. I was going through some stuff in my own life, and as a result of that, I was in a place where I wasn't really feeling so creative, so I took a bit of a break from it. But then in early 2017, I actually hooked up with another creator, a writer by the name of Andrew Healy, and Andrew and I just sort of we hit it off right away. And he initially contacted me. Like we had added each other on Facebook years before that, but it was just one of those things where we never really interacted much. It's just, you go in the same circles, and sometimes you add someone, but it just kind of worked out that we were living in the same area now. So I ran into him while he was walking his dog at the time, and we got to talking. And then shortly after that, he approached me about working on a comic with him. And we started working on that. So I mean, that's something we could maybe talk about a bit later as well, as that comic. But just to summarize all the things going on, Andrew is a writer for animation, and he's had some episodes, written for PJ Masks that were on TV, and I just thought that was like the coolest thing, like the idea of writing something that was televised. So he had discussed with me, he's like, oh hey, I'm trying to pitch some stuff for animation, so would you want to do that? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, I went to animation school way back in 2001 to 2002, because that was my first career choice before getting pulled into comics, and actually watching your interview with Adam Prosser from last week. Apparently that's something that's fairly common. But no, Andrew and I ended up developing a couple of pitch packages together, and we entered a competition at the Ottawa Animation Festival later that year. And surprisingly, we did very well. We were actually runners-up in that competition for one of our projects called Zap Kazam, which was a kind of kids humor sort of show, and we're developing other things. But I've also been working on a few other projects too relating to comics.
Which I mean is one of the things that I guess you mentioned to me a few weeks ago. That you have some new projects right now that you're working on. I know that you have Jace Wars is one of them. Legends of Kurasoto, or is that one of them?
Yeah, Legends of the Legend of Kurasoto.
Yeah, Legend of Kurasoto, as well as Dragon Knights. I know it's another project. So I mean, and if you can just share a little bit about that, I mean, I'm happy to. I mean, we're going to put up your banner here so everyone can see also where to check your work out. But I mean, yeah, if you can tell us if you want to start with one of those, I'm happy to show some of the images as well of the work that you guys have been putting together. I know that this is your personal work, but have you contributed with? Have you cooperated with anyone else on these specific projects?
Yeah, I mean the Jace Wars project, which I'd say chronologically, as far as things that will be released, that came out last year.
Okay.
So the Jace Wars project, very very personal project. A good friend of mine, Aaron Russell, he started this organization years ago, and it was started because his son Jace actually probably about 10 or so years ago, he actually had a brain tumor. When he was, about a year old, was not expected to live through the night. And miraculously, they managed to, get the doctors together, perform the surgeries, and he made a full recovery, and still to this day. And Aaron himself has been heavily into Star Wars. Like, he's actually in the 501st. He's a Vader in the 501st.
Oh wow!
And he wanted to basically show a thank you to everyone who had supported him during that time. And his way of thinking was paying it forward. And part of that was starting this organization that raises funds for brain tumor awareness, like for kids, as well as raising funds for Ronald McDonald House and McMaster Hospital. And the Jace Wars comic that came out of that was actually Aaron's dream, that he's like, you know what, I've always been thinking, like, how would this fit into the Star Wars universe? So it's legally speaking, it's like a parody. It's like crossing over the Star Wars universe, but not official canon. But it was something that he had been writing over the course, he told me, of like 7 years or something, and had asked me years ago, like, would you be interested in illustrating this? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
And so was there any kind of fundraising involved in it, or is that something that okay.
Yes. So when we got the book done, and it was a few months of work to get the first book done, we got it. We got it printed through Studio Comics, of course, working with Alfonso, and very very happy with the results of that book. And in fact, the response has been so great. Like, all the proceeds from the sale of the book are going to a combination of McMaster Hospital in Hamilton and Ronald McDonald House. Like, Aaron is not taking anything from that at all. Like, outside of, like, obviously covering the cost of producing the book, no profit there whatsoever. It's just strictly going to that. And it's just sort of it's a very metaphorical story. Just kind of taking his son and as well including his daughter in the story as well. Like,
I mean, I'm sure that's life altering both for him and for you. I mean, as an artist, that you kind of experience that and work with someone on such a touchy subject, right? I mean, it's but it's also, I mean, you guys are doing it for a good cause, right? You're putting something together that's really, trying to raise awareness. Am I right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is the goal first and foremost, is to raise that awareness, is to help benefit, but also for Aaron, he's always wanted to, tell this story. Like, this is a story, he always considered it somewhat analogous to, like, fighting the cancer, to fighting evil within the galaxy and stuff like that. So there's a lot of other supporters who are paid tribute throughout the book in the form of different characters and things like that. So it was a lot of fun, and in fact, it went over so well. We're currently the second and third. Well, the second script is done, so we're working on the layouts and stuff to get that done. Specific timelines, just with everything going on right now, we don't quite know yet. We're hoping in the next year or so to get the second book out, and then shortly thereafter the third book, and make it a nice, neat trilogy as well. So for Jace Wars, that's what's going on there.
No, that's awesome. I mean, yeah. And I sorry, you were mentioning a few of the other titles as well.
Yes. So there's Legend of Kirisoto.
Yeah,
which is a it is a adventure. It is a hero's tale, a hero's journey set in feudal Japan. And our sort of thought process, like this was Andrew's project, and this is actually how Andrew Healy and I started working together. Is like he had written this and had wanted someone to collaborate with, and I'm actually like surprisingly wary about collaborations. Yeah, because I like working on other projects. I've always said to people, like, look, if I'm not into the story, then I don't want, like, doesn't matter about finances, like that. That's sort of a secondary thing. It's more about if the story doesn't capture me, I don't want to work on it. And that's just mainly because if I'm not excited about it, I'm not going to do my best work. But the story that he showed me was very well thought out, and it had me hooked. Like, he showed me just a few pages of the script, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to do this. So we came up with this idea, and really the elevator pitch, the short version would be like, imagine it's almost like a Conan type story, like Conan the Barbarian, Savage Sword of Conan, but we're setting it in feudal Japan, and we're incorporating samurai values to the time period, but also a lot of Japanese folklore and legends and things like that. We're really wanting to do our research to make sure that it's done properly, so it doesn't seem like, oh, we're just grabbing something from here and here. We're making sure that we're giving it the proper treatment and respect that it deserves, because
and so,
it can be tricky otherwise.
That brings me into another project I know that you've got cooking. I mean, I never really understood if you guys completed this or you worked on it, but Dragon Knights. Can you? I mean, I've got a nice image here that you guys put together, but tell us a little bit about Dragon Knights.
So Dragon Knights is our love letter, really, to the 80s and 90s animation action series. So really, the thought process behind it is, imagine something like Ninja Turtles, but set in the medieval times. So a lot of people have likened it to gargoyles. When they say it, they're like, that makes me... I'm like, yes, but it's taking place in sort of a medieval fantasy world, like not a strictly historically accurate, like more of a fantasy. So something between a historical and a Tolkien type thing, but focusing on dragons who have essentially, they were once human. They've been transformed by a curse from their human form into these dragons, and they're trying to find a way to transform back again and go back to their lives. And then they're ousted by the kingdom. So we've been trying to sell it as an animated series for the last couple of years, and we've been turned down by almost everyone. But I mean, the animation development world in and of itself, like Andrew actually now is working as a development executive for Portfolio Entertainment, and he tells me it's not easy. Like, even if you're someone who's established, like I met Fred Siebert, a Frederator, at a conference a couple of years ago, and he told me that even with his credentials, and he's one of the most well-respected individuals within animation, and he told me he's the executive producer on Castlevania for Netflix. And he said even though Castlevania has a built-in fan base and it has an attached property to it, and even with all of that stuff, with his reputation, it took him 10 years to sell Castlevania to get a green light for that. Yeah. So then I'm like, well, I'm never going to sell this then. So
well, I mean, Castlevania was also, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it not part of a show back in the 90s that had like Nintendo and a few other IPs from Nintendo at the time? I mean,
Yeah, Captain N, I think it was.
Yeah, and they had like Mother Brain from Metro and a few other
Yeah, they
characters.
did the voice for Little Shop of Horrors for Mother Brain, the plants, the Audrey too. But yeah, no, they sold but that was a Nintendo show though. That wasn't strictly. It was elements of Castlevania, so I think Simon Belmont occasionally showed up on that show. But this was just a straight up, okay, we want to do like an R-rated animated like action series, and it was a tough sell. He told me, like, even though they had you've got a fan base, you've got an established property, he said it still wasn't easy to sell. And even when I saw him more recently in Ottawa back in 2018, he's like, yeah, now, like, he's like, I'm not sure if I could sell it now. Of course, now it's gone on to its third season.
Would you guys, sorry to cut you off, but would you guys consider putting a book together at least?
Yeah, that's where I'm going. Like Dragon Knights, once we have the first chapter of Kirisoto out, and we're expecting Kirisoto to be released sometime in the fall.
Okay.
Because like the script is done, layouts are done. I've just got to get the final artwork put together, and we're going to be releasing it online. So because distribution is tough right now with everything being shut down, so we want to release it online so people can at least read it and tell us what they think and enjoy it. I mean,
Shane, you also did some work with Andy from Age Comics. Can you tell me a little bit about working with Andy? And I believe you worked on Size. That's one of his.
The Jewish Comics Anthology. Yeah, that's the second volume. I worked on the first volume. Yep. There it is.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
So
you worked on this, and you also worked on the first volume, the Jewish Comics Anthology, correct?
Yeah, from 2014, I believe it was.
And yeah, so, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about this image here they created? I mean, are these all art pieces that you put together?
On the far left, I guess, if you're looking at the screen, that would be the cover. That is not me. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Andy that did that himself. But all of the images on that are lined up on the right part of the screen, those are all mine. And the series or the story itself, it was a short story. It's more of a family friendly kind of fun, thing that's happening about an intergalactic zoo on Earth. Like, it's got all these different animals, and there's the zookeeper is struggling because his family's coming over for Passover and he doesn't know how to fit them all in the house. So he's talking to his virtual rabbi, trying to get advice on how to deal with it, and it's apparently a very it was a lot of fun.
That version of the future.
Pardon?
I'm saying I can't wait till that version of the future comes about.
Yeah, with the virtual rabbis.
Yeah,
you can save on synagogue tickets for sure. But no, I mean, that was my
right. Like any faith.
I'm speaking from my personal perspective, but obviously all perspectives are welcome. But but the first Jewish Comics Anthology, this is a big departure from that, because on that first book, I did it was a horror story. It was called The Bleeding Tree, and it's everything you think it would be.
Yeah.
And going from that to a very lighthearted family comedy, like I really appreciated the fact that Andy recognize the fact that I don't want it. Like, I've done so many horror projects over the years, and I don't want to get stuck with just doing horror. Like, even Kirisoto has a very strong horror twist to it. I still love the story, but I like to sort of spread my wings and try different things. And that's why, I don't know if you have that banner for Zap Kazam that I sent over. That is a very different project. And on this particular one, the artwork is not mine. This is a animation artist by the name of Joseph Troy, who did the designs for us. And Andrew and I just did the writing and the development on that. So that's something else that I've been enjoying too. Like, even for Zap Kazam and Dragon Knights, we have written pilots for both of those shows as part of our pitching. So that was fun too.
What's Zap Kazam about? Like, if you give us a quick, pitch.
Oh yeah, I've done this so many times. Let's see if I've still got it. That was our runner-up, by the way, in the animation festival in 2017. But essentially, it's about a boy wizard, who's kicked out of his school. And he lives in like a wizard town, like a funny wizard town, like a magic town, kind of like a parody of Harry Potter. And
Was it
a girl
inspired by Shazam by any chance a little bit, or
by what?
by Shazam in any
Oh
case? Okay.
no. So it's a boy wizard and a girl scientist. They are kicked out of their respective magic, fantasy, and sci-fi towns, and now they have to go to like regular public school with the rest of us. So and it's a town called Bourville, and they're trying to, exist. They're going from their very specific communities now to the world of like jocks and cheerleaders and bullies and stuff that they're not used to, like basically our kind of world.
Yeah.
And they're trying to solve problems by combining magic and science together.
Oh wow.
Basically, and we have like, and the fun thing there is we get to throw everything at it. It's like Doctor Who. We get to have, if we want to put vampires in, we want to put, like, in the image you have, they're kidnapping pharaohs for a science project.
Wow.
They're using shrinking rays. They're using like anything you can imagine can go in there, which is what we love so much about it.
That's awesome. I mean, so one other thing, Shane, I know we touched a little bit on this when I spoke to you last time, but you mentioned you also have a school now that you've been putting together, and you're looking to promote that once yeah, tell me a bit about it just so I can get a better understanding. I mean, it's called Create with Kershey, is that correct?
Yeah, Create with Kershey is a school that's opening in Thornhill, which is north of Toronto. We made the deal to take over the space from an existing school that was there, the Art and Design School. We made that deal in mid-March, just before all of the COVID stuff started happening. So we've been spending this time kind of just, we were planning to, anyway, just renovate the space and make it suitable for our needs.
Oh, very nice.
And because the goal being that we wanted to, the old school that was there, or the original school that was there, they offered a lot of traditional classes. So things like, painting and drawing, and the students are used to sort of coming in, you do a painting or you do some various drawing exercises. So we're going to keep some of that, but we're also going to be introducing, from my own experience, a lot of sculpting. So, and not just like your traditional sculpting in terms of like figures and things like that, but I mean like custom action figures, or customizing pops, or creating, geeky bookends, and also going into comics creation courses and things like that. And we want to appeal, because I've been doing this, the teaching stuff for about 20 years. I want to appeal not just to kids, but also adults too, because there's a lot of people who, even though they've been, into comics and stuff, and they think like, well, it's too late for me. And I'm like, well, no, like, I mean, at any time, you're interested in something, you should pursue it. So I want to provide these opportunities. Like, I want to have a comics class for kids, but I also want to have comics classes for adults too. And that's not just for...
You'll get a lot of that. Because I know that there's a huge interest. I know you mentioned to me that you were teaching children for many years with regards to how to create comics and how to draw. But there is obviously a difference between the adults and children that want to get into it. And actually, some of the stuff I'm going to be sharing today in the Comics Vault will show a little bit of that in terms of maturity level for even for readership, right? In terms of what kind of books are out there, getting the basics down versus understanding, the sequential art form of telling a story, or just understanding also movement. Movement's one of those things that for me has always been a difficult part of learning how to draw, and just getting the motion down and getting, so I mean, that kind of stuff to me has always been a challenge, but I'm sure other adults have see that as well, and there's a market out there essentially for that. Am I right?
Yeah, we've done our homework. I mean, a lot of I spoke to a lot of the parents, even of the kids who were coming out of the older program from the original owners, who were not so familiar with the comic stuff, like more of the traditional. And that's why, look, like, we're offering drop-in programs. So if you want to try out the comic stuff and see how it speaks to you. I mean, what I love about comics is that all kids like telling stories, and it's just the best. Like, for me, comics are the ultimate way to tell a story, combining images and words together in a sequence, and just learning that, like, all that I've learned about that, like, I'm a teacher, but I am a lifelong student of this too. Like, I probably have one of the largest libraries of how to draw comics and how to write comics and stuff. And having taken, much like yourself, the Ty Templeton's boot camp courses in Toronto, and
they're awesome. Yeah.
I took about 5 of them, I believe, and I know Ty very well. through those courses as well. So just sharing that knowledge. Like, I've always loved to teach and mentor, and a lot of this, like, actually a lot of the students that I've taught years ago, I've had the pleasure of working with them as colleagues now. So I've been able to sometimes call them up and say, like, hey, like, are you free to work on a project? And it's not just because, like, oh, you're my student, I'm giving you preferential treatment or something. It's like, no, like, there's stuff, they stand on their own. Some of the students I taught years ago, I'm not ashamed to admit, they have far surpassed my own abilities, and I'm like, good for them.
Wow.
Like, I don't hold any animosity towards that. I'm like, awesome, like that's great. You know, you're kicking butt now, and,
Well, I mean,
and it shows.
You kind of showed them the path too. I mean, it's
I don't like to do this too much.
yeah.
I like that I'm part of it. Like, to know that and it could be for better or for worse. It's like, oh, like, I learned this thing. That's the opposite of what Shane taught me, but it works better for me. And that's when I say everyone's path is different. But the fact that, like, I'm always happy to say, like, I was part of that journey for better or for worse. So I'm glad you kept up with it. And again, like, I'm on very good terms with many of the former students who I do continue to work with and speak with regularly and catch up with at the conventions and stuff, because they have their own tables. So it's great.
And actually, that brings a question that I know we kind of spoke about, because I know you have worked with some of the convention scene in terms of, like, Fan Expo. I know both as an artist with your own booths, but also as part of the staff. I mean, you've worked in collaboration with also assisting some of the other artists that work in the business in the Artist Alley here in Fan Expo Canada. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mainly since 2016. And when I was in Heroes Manufactured,
yeah.
A lot of that, the times that I was being interviewed at the convention, it was from the organizational side, helping out there. So officially, my position is working with the comic guest department, since that's, the main area. I mean, I did have a toy store for a while, so I am familiar with the retail side of it. But within comics, when Kevin Boyd, who's the Canadian guest coordinator for
great guy, by the way.
Pardon?
Great guy, by the way.
Yes, yeah. Kevin and I go way back. But when he was looking for people for the team, I jumped on it. I'm like, yeah, I've run a lot of my own shows, like, not near the size of Fan Expo. So that's been another part of my experience too, is just running, like, smaller toy shows and conventions and stuff. So I've done that side. And I was also I was sick of sitting behind the table, and it's nothing to, like, I love interacting with the fans and stuff. I just like to be out there a little bit more and a little more active. So just the sitting is what I had the issue with. And over the years, I just said, okay, I can't really do this anymore. I want to get up. I want to be able to walk around, stretch my legs a bit, and get a bit of a different experience on it. And I think it's safe to say the experience has been positive from all sides of things. I mean, like, my goal within the organization is to identify the things that were challenges for me when I was an artist, and try to apply those that feedback that I had in my mind to create a better experience for the guests that we have coming in and make the show better.
That being said, I mean, are you also are you considering, doing anything outside of comics eventually, video games? I know you said animation, something that you're looking towards, but I mean, outside of that as well, like, have you done any kind of storyboard art before? Is that something you might consider? Because it's something, like, I'm always finding artists, trying out different aspects of the kind of the entertainment industry as well, not just necessarily comics. So they tend to drift off into some other areas. I know we have some other guests coming up in the upcoming weeks that are that work on video game art, but they also do comics. So is that something you've considered?
More than considered, actually. I'm actively storyboarding on a film right now, on a documentary. There's some animated segments.
Wow.
I can't give away too much about that. It's subject to confidentiality as things go. But I did storyboard a film last year, actually, called a short film by a friend, Dan Abramovici, a filmmaker.
Oh, I know Dan.
Yeah. So he did a short film. He was looking for a board artist on short notice. So I boarded his film. It was very rough boards, but I did it over the course of like 2 days, the entire film.
And Dan, I believe, had like a Netflix feature of couple years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah. I think Ben's Not Home or something.
Ben's Not Home. Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Dan and I, I met Dan. I worked at an overnight camp with him
oh wow.
years ago. So
I
that's
went to
how
high
we met
school
each
with him
other.
as well. So I mean,
Yeah.
back at Westmount Collegiate Institute in Thornhill. So
you left the Vaughan people and
I
went
left
there.
the Vaughan. I left people like you for people like him. Unfortunately,
I wanted to go to Westmount, but
yeah.
but I was out of the area. No, but I boarded that, and I've been trying to build those skills, not just because I love story, and again, I'll always go back to that. Like whenever I'm thinking of a story in my head, I see it as a film. Like it's playing out for me, and that's why like my layout process comes so quickly. It only occurred to me over the last year. Like I was reading about some artists who don't have a visual imagination. It's this sort of psychological or medical condition actually, where they and it was like someone from Disney whose name is escaping me, but he was very high up in the company saying like, yeah, I don't picture things in my head. Like I know what humans look like. So I think he was designing the Little Mermaid and couldn't picture it, but he could kind of draw it out based on a description. I'm like, wow, that like because I always assume this is a problem when you have a certain experience in your life. You're like, oh, well, everyone can do this because I can do it.
No, of course.
So when I heard, so
it
just
doesn't work that way.
no, and that's something that at my age even like I'm still learning. It's just like just because something to me comes like, oh yeah, that's easy. Like especially when I'm teaching, I have to remember that and remind myself. I'm like, yeah, just do this. And then if the kids or the students or whatever looking at me like, I don't know how to do that, and I'm like,
yeah.
Well, just do it. Like, it's but no, with storyboarding is something that I've been taking additional courses, and through those actually, while just trying to learn the programs and stuff, I've managed to get a few gigs that way. Nice. And I also like, I'd love to get into video game. I have some game concepts that I like to pitch, but I gotta limit.
Yeah, you gotta branch out wherever you can.
I can't take everything on, but no, I also want to write
here. I'm sure. Sorry, but I did want to ask you one quick question, kind of to end things off. But I mean, if you can share some tips also for young artists trying to break into the business, if you have anything kind of in a nutshell to share and educate them a little bit in getting involved.
Yeah, my best, I guess the greatest piece of advice that I've been sort of mulling over for months now is that everyone is going to like do your work for you, and that's not just in terms of like as far as like fan art versus your own art. Do a balance of that. Draw what makes you happy, paint what makes you happy. But ultimately, when it comes to showing your stuff to other people, everyone is going to have an opinion on it, and not everyone is going to like it. But sometimes you have to like accept the fact that if someone is giving you advice to help you, that is a good thing. Like if you can get feedback, like for me, when I'm showing my portfolio or I'm showing something around, if I get nothing but compliments, that's great. I feel good that the people like my work, but at the same time, it doesn't help me get better. So that's why I'm saying if you show something to someone and they're saying like, if they're saying it's terrible and they're being a jerk about it, that's not helpful. Just disregard that.
Learn how to take criticism, I guess.
That's learn how to take. But if someone's saying like, "Can I make a suggestion?" then say yes, please. Like any advice is good. You don't have to agree with it, but listen to it. But it's not an insult. Like if someone's trying to help you,
out of it. That's something I learned years ago in art school. I have to say, and it's. I mean, this was many years ago. I went to OCAD, so the Ontario College of Art and Design, which became the university after, but. Yeah, but you know what? Thank you for sharing that with us, Shane. I appreciate you coming out today and showing, telling us a little bit about yourself, your school, everything that you're doing. Again, guys, this is Shane Kirshenblatt with Create with Kershey. So you can go to createwithkershey.com. He also runs Kershey Pictures and Words. But yeah, guys, and it's Kershey.com. That's if you want to check out some of his work as well. So yeah, thanks, Shane. I appreciate you coming out today. And guys, stick around. We're gonna actually go right into our next segment, which is our new comics vault area. And Shane, I do want to mention, Shane, real quickly. You helped, because of you. We have that new font that we're looking at. Shane hated the Comic Sans font last week, so due to his criticism, as we just spoke about, I actually took
feedback, my constructive feedback.
Constructive feedback. And you know what? But there's an example of some good feedback for people. But yeah, we're gonna go right into Comic Vault. So thanks again, Shane.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, here, so we're gonna go over some really cool books today. We'll start with our more mainstream book. This is Valerian. If you guys have seen the movie, it's out. It's by two really unique French artists. Movie wasn't my favorite, to be honest with you, mostly because Rihanna was in it. It wasn't the greatest performance, but the rest of the movie was kind of fun. So I mean, it's a book with all the original works from Jean-Claude Mézières as well as Pierre Christian. And you can actually take a look here. There's a nice little forwarding of the two with Luc Besson, the director of the film. But this actually has some of the original work done, I believe, back in the 60s and 70s. So you can take a look here. It's really nice. Got some beautiful artwork. The story is a lot better than the movies. It's a lot more fun, quirky. It's got some tongue-in-cheek humor. But definitely you can check it out if you're into a lot of sci-fi fantasy. Not so much cyberpunk, but definitely more of the sci-fi fantasy. A bit of romance as well in there, and played up quite well. So that's one book I definitely recommend. For the next book, these are more drawing books. I want to recommend two of them. This one's more so for like the younger generation. I find it's called Drawing Cutting Edge Anatomy by Christopher Hart. He's great illustrator. Shows some unique visuals there for and some definitely some really cool references for people to check out. Any artist that wants to check out, like, the torso, see how to figure that out. But yeah, I mean, some really great work here, some more visuals there. Another book that I really like a lot by Michael Matissier. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Force Companion. This guy does some really unique work around force drawing. He actually has some courses online as well. But I mean, sorry, that's a perspectives drawing, but I mean, it gives you a little bit of an idea of really how to play with your lines and force draw there. He really shows you the arrows, as you can see. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but some really unique stuff there. Definitely check out his work. He's done a ton of stuff the last few years. There's one more I'd like to show you guys as well. So he really shows you how the force of lines and force of, for example, of an action shot or any kind of motion is played in. So I really, really admire his work and highly recommend it out there. And now I'm going to take you guys into our toys and collectibles segment as well. Some cool stuff I picked up not that long ago. A nice little Star Wars Princess Leia, a nice little bust you got here. Comes with a booklet as well. I'm actually not sure who made this here, but it does show Disney on it and Chronicle Books. So yeah, definitely check it out if you're interested in a nice little bust. I picked this up at a BMV for about like $5 or $6. It was really cool. Another nice little statue for anyone who loves One Punch Man. That's another little statue I picked up not that long ago, about $20. Really cool statue. I mean, I'm not going to open it up right now. We may end up selling it on this show or some other show one day. And then there's one other statue here. I'd like to always show this one. It's a really cool one. I'll show you the next week. I'll show you another one, but it's an Avengers comics toy. So here you go. It's a nice little. It's also like a nice little statue. We'll pull it out just to show you guys. But it's a little stand of the original Avengers comic book. I believe it's issue number 4, where Captain America is actually with the Avengers. So I really like that. I picked that up at Gotham Central. Buddy of mine, Carlos Camara. So I mean, if you guys know him and you go by Gotham Central, you can check it out. He had some of these things. I'm not sure if he has them anymore, but he has a lot of really cool statues, toys, everything, collectibles. Definitely check them out as well. They're going to be featured in our new show, Heroes Manufactured, Creators Unleashed, which comes out around July of this summer. So we're going to be featuring more of that. and that's Heroes Manufactured, Creators Unleashed. That's the show right there with our host, Philip Moran, who will be taking us to many different cities. So hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Thanks again for Shane for coming out and being a part of the live show that we've got going. And yeah, guys, looking forward to seeing more of some of the other artists that are going to be coming out. We have some cool surprises coming up next week. And yeah, have yourself a great week and stay safe, guys. Take care.